Hi. Hi again.
Hello.
It's Louisa. So I'm going to introduce to you our next speaker, Tracy Dixon. She's an automation and DevOps and agile strategist with a passion for building automations that save time and money, enabling teams to spend time on what matters the most. She holds the UiPath Advanced RPA Developer Certification and teaches DevOps through the Phoenix Project Business Simulation Workshop. In her largest robotic projects, Trace helped hospice patients to receive the fastest bedside care possible. Tracy has nearly 20 years of experience as a senior technician, program, project, and account manager. She has worked for clients through Centric Consulting across multiple industries, including healthcare, insurance, field service, finance, financial services, and technology. Tracy is also a certified Microsoft Office Specialist Master, AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner, Project Management Professional, Agile Certified Practitioner, and Certified Scrum Master. Wow, that's great. So Tracy, I'm gonna leave the floor to you, and you just call me. I'll call right back in.
All right. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me, everyone. So I have a little bit of a couple of interactive elements to the presentation here. So either on your phone, on your desktop, wherever you have internet access, if you can pull up menti.com and enter that code, I'll pull up the overview. The code is here as well. If you'll pull up the code 5037413, that will bring up the couple of interactive elements that we have in the presentation so you guys can participate too. So here is what we'll cover today. The presentation is Botify Your Project Management. So I'm going to talk to you guys more about robotic process automation and why you as a project manager should know all about it, not just for being able to manage projects related to RPA, but personally so that you can incorporate robotic process automation into your work and do things a little bit better, whether it be work, home, wherever it is, but do things more efficiently so that you can spend time doing things that matter to you most. So here's what we'll go through today. First, I will introduce myself a little better. We'll talk about what RPA is, robotic process automation. We'll talk about what it looks like in practice, how it works in the workplace and at home. You will see a very practical, non-work related demonstration of something that I built for myself that could work just as well in the project management situation, and then see some application in RPA and project management life. So please feel free to stop me throughout. You don't have to hold questions to the end. I'll ask for them, but feel free to make this an interactive discussion. So a little bit more about me. I am a UiPath MVP, which just means that I am one of 20 that the company UiPath, which is the leading automation vendor, selected as being representatives of UiPath in the community because I help people use the tool, or was helping people avidly. And so I was selected as one of those top folks across the world, and love the tool, love that it helps people to do stuff that means the most to them and leaves the stuff that's boring and repetitive to tooling. I also am an EPM and Agile strategist and practitioner. So I do consulting work related to enterprise project, program, and portfolio management and Agile as well. I am certified in RPA and my PMI certifications as well, Microsoft Office products, a bunch of different stuff. I am mom to 4 kids and wife to a Jax Fire Rescue Lieutenant. I actually am in Jacksonville, so I work with the Centric Miami practice, but sit here in Jacksonville. I get to travel or to pre-COVID to South Florida multiple times per month. Hopefully I'm back there soon. And then love to boat and do jiu-jitsu when I can. So Hope you guys have Menti up on screen. If you have not already put something in, I want you to think about robots and the impact on your future and put in some phrases that come to mind. I'll give you guys a few seconds for that. Feel free to put in, I think you can put in up to 5 words for each of you. Give it about 15 more seconds. All right, so I always find this really interesting because some people have the image of robots in their mind as like, you know, Cyberdyne systems and the Terminator and, you know, AI taking over the world. So robots are definitely different than artificial intelligence. So a lot of these don't tend to be too bad. There is some replacement of human jobs, but we'll talk about the types of human jobs that are often replaced. And very rarely is a job fully replaced. So we'll talk more about that. But definitely automation is a big piece of things. Faster and efficient are as well. We'll definitely dig into the details of what types of things you can expect on your future. There will be significant impact to the types of jobs there are. There's significant impact and increase in technology and significant impact on the way your children will work for sure. So we'll get to all of that. But so far, what's listed here is not so bad. So positive audience overall. So let's talk more about what RPA is. So first, a robot is simply something that mimics human actions. If you think of a physical robot like a vacuum, that robot is simply doing the same things that you might do physically yourself. So a robotic vacuum is performing the physical act of vacuuming the same way you would as a human. A computer-based robot is just mimicking your human actions. So think of something that has a set of instructions that mimics your keystrokes and your mouse clicks with a more complicated set of instructions in the way that you would at the website that you might, on the desktop application that you would use, those sorts of things. So robotic process automation then is robotics. So using a robot that simulates human action. And then process, which is just a sequence of steps, just instructions. And then automation, which typically means minimal human intervention. So you put those all together and you get pretty much a recipe that involves minimal human intervention and a sequence of a lot of mouse clicks and keystrokes. I like to think of it as something that I could give a 12-year-old for the first time. It could be a very complicated set of instructions, but detailed enough that my 12-year-old could follow it. So go to this website, type in these letters, hit enter, you put in this username, this password, hit enter again. So that type of thing to get to that detailed level instruction, perform this exact set of activities. That is what you feed RPA, that is the process information that you feed it for it to mimic what's necessary. And you can give it several different paths. It doesn't have to be the same exact way every time. There can be multiple different ways to go about it. So last year in 2019, RPA software revenue grew 63%. It is the fastest growing software in the enterprise in the world, period, right now. This is the #1 area of growth in the world. Automation is it. So if you're not already working on or have worked on an automation-oriented project as a project manager, it is likely that you will at some point. This is what companies are going to. This not only is something that is less expensive for the company, but in the end, the statistics actually show that the employees are a whole lot happier after these projects are complete. It's a little scary at first if it's an unknown for many of them, but afterward, they're a whole lot happier in the end, and we'll talk more about that as well. So here is Gartner's Magic Quadrant for 2020. The top 3 vendors are UiPath, Automation Anywhere, and Blue Prism. UiPath is considered currently the market leader, just so you're familiar with some of the tools. Microsoft, its tool is called Flow, definitely a bit more difficult to use. UiPath's tool is actually free to use. Everyone can actually download a copy of the tooling for free and have a robot to use for free for development purposes. And any company can use it for free if they have $5 million or less of revenue per year, and for any training purposes. So that's something that everyone has accessibility to, and any charity can always use it for free. So something that you can make sure that any charitable organization knows about, that the training is free as well, that they can always access that and start building things on their own to benefit the work that they're doing, since every charity is always looking for ways to stretch their dollars. All right, if you have not already guessed on the next question on Menti, please do. Take your guess at what % of large and very large organizations will be working with RPA by the end of 2022. We'll give you guys 30 seconds to answer. All right, any others? All right, so the correct answer here is 85%. So 85% of the large and very large organizations are planning RPA projects by the end of 2022. So it's highly pervasive in significant organizations. And we're seeing more and more small businesses consider this because the tooling is free. As I mentioned, for small businesses, it is fully functional, and the license is free to use for a robot for any companies that have 5 million in revenue and less per year. And the training is fully free and actually very solid. So they do try to make this accessible for smaller companies. If you think about a robot and what it can run, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there aren't lunch breaks, there's no bathroom break. As long as you build processes for it to run, you can really keep a robot pretty darn busy. So if you put in the effort to learn how to build these, which is low code, much simpler than pure development. So definitely built, and 2 different sets of tools with business users in mind. There's a little bit more technical side, but definitely easier to use than a standard development type environment. It's more accessible than going out and doing custom development for sure. So they're building things with the typical everyday user in mind, and with the goal of having a robot on every desktop for sure. So why even consider RPA at all? What are the benefits? So first, on the human side, more meaningful work. The types of work that a robot does, those very simplistic instructions, the work is typically very routine, highly repeatable. Those are not the super meaningful things that you want to get to every day. They are the rote, repetitive things that probably are at the bottom of your list of wanting to do, that are things that you have to check off regularly. This leaves the more meaningful work to you, the things that you have to use your human brain for, that emotional intelligence oriented work, that is left then for the humans to do. So in the end, like I mentioned before, the attrition rate is lower after the team can give away the stuff that is rote and repetitive to robots. So segmenting that off and then leaving the rest for the human team. So lower attrition rate, better customer experience. A robot can't lose a piece of paper under the desk. It can't accidentally forget to do XYZ. Robots typically have solid error handling, solid self-monitoring. They would report if there's an error, so you're aware of it and can follow up on it. So solid QA processes in place and solid error handling, where those exceptions can then be handled by the human team where it makes sense, rather than a human having to do every single item themselves. So better customer experience overall. Typically, the robots can process things a lot faster. The very first production robot I built, the human team that was working on this at the time was working on getting hospice patients the bedside care. Once a hospice patient qualified for care, they were set up with a referral, and this team was tasked with connecting them to someone that could talk with them about their options, and were doing things as fast as they could humanly possibly get them. 24 hours a day, multiple call centers across multiple areas, and it took them an average of 8 to 10 minutes for the very first connection, despite their best efforts. We were able to make that average response time 3 to 5 seconds, where a robot sitting and looking at that all day long could respond right away, where it's likely that that social worker that was making that referral was probably still sitting in their chair when they got an immediate response back saying, hey, help is on the way. And at times, there was also a staff member from that client that could have been walking down the hallway, getting a message, letting them know that the family was ready to talk about options. So that's a really solid, really amazing customer experience to move to something that quickly, especially at a time when you don't have time and every second counts. So that's a really amazing customer experience, phenomenally better than they had before. So that's an example of very solid delivery time. And then better processes. So just by looking at processes alone to consider them for RPA, they tend to get better. You look at them, you're of course not going to automate a process that is not the best as it could be already. You tend to optimize it regardless. So you tend to cut out the extra steps and question why certain things were happening. So that process alone, you will cut extra steps out. And then beyond that, robots can look at a page and memorize all of the information on a page that you simply can't do that as a human. So there are advantages to things like that, just from using a robot that you just couldn't do beforehand. Logging, metrics, you couldn't know every millisecond that it took for something to happen before, where you can now. You can hold your vendors more accountable for the response on the website, or know that it went down 15 times a day before and have solid numbers on that where you couldn't have known before. So lots of other information that you didn't have access to prior. Then on the business side, companies have a whole lot better ability to manage and improve their processes. So we were just talking about metrics. They can look a whole lot more closely. They now have information where they can dig in deep to all of the pieces of their process and look at all the elements and figure out where things might be going wrong and have solid data to back it up. They are able to get return on their investment rather quickly. Usually robots take just a few weeks to create, typically between 2 to maybe 4 to 6 weeks for really complicated robots, maximum, where it's not a multi-month type engagement. So really rapid return on investment, and then those processes can be run for quite some time. So it ends up being a lower cost versus paying a person to constantly do something that is not necessarily enjoyable work. So you can then report on that information and then analyze it, and then take your processes to the next level, where you may take an initial step in automating something. You can go beyond that and get even more customer focused and do an even better job with your processes in the future, and take it to that next level of customer experience. So conversion, there's no need to install some additional or convert a system. You install the tooling and it works with whatever you have. So whether you have a mainframe or whether you have the latest, greatest technology, the RPA tooling can interact with those systems. It can be behind the scenes, it can be on the front end. All of those abilities are available and can simulate the front end clicking on the user interface, or can interact just like other development tools do behind the scenes, either way. So there's nothing that forces you to switch systems. You can even connect systems that aren't meant to be connected. It's like an integration. So it gives you options that you maybe didn't think were options before. And then better compliance. So things like terminating users may not be on the top of the list for every supervisor. It's an easy thing to forget, but having a robot do it, or a robot check on things, or do that audit report every month, those types of things. Much better to have a robot do that, because it's just easy to forget that type of thing, where there's risk to the company if they don't happen, if those processes don't happen, and they just get forgotten. So we talked a little bit about role replacement and how this impacts users. So about half the activities people are paid to do could be automated. About 60% of occupations have at least a third of the activities that could be automated. So in the chat, let's take a guess. How many roles can be fully automated? If you had to guess, what percentage of jobs could be completely replaced with automation? Give your best guess in the chat. What percentage of roles could be fully automated? All right, 50%, 10%, 20, 50%. All right, anyone else? All right, see a variety of answers between 70 to 20 to 40. All right, good guesses. So the answer, 5%, 5. So very few jobs can be fully automated. A lot less than you think. You have to have something that's very repeatable, very routine, very limited decision making involved, very little variation from a few paths, very limited paths. So the roles that can be fully automated, think to things like manufacturing, equipment operation, inspection and monitoring, data entry, highly repeatable stuff. So things that involve decision making, customer service, maybe a portion of those could be automated. So you might be able to answer a phone call with a customer, and we might be able to assist you by pulling the customer up on the screen, or assisting with part of the process. But it's definitely not something that could be fully automated, because we need you as a human and your emotional intelligence and your decision making ability to help resolve the problem with that customer. And that is not a fully automatable job. So it's only 5%. So there's never going to be a situation in which the robots are coming to take over the world, and humans are going to be gone. It's just not. Now, On the opposite side of things, take a wild guess at what percent of growth is expected for those with advanced IT skills in the future within the next 10 years to support RPA. So within the next 10 years, advanced IT skills are expected to grow by what percentage? All right, we have a wild variety of answers here. So the answer is 91%. Even basic digital skills are expected to grow by 70% for workers. The reason why is that RPA is expected to be rapidly proliferating throughout most workplaces. We need folks that will be able to help support automations and help build automations for sure in the future. So big change for those of us that can support technology in the future. Really huge growth in the job market for those with emotional intelligence, one, and those with technology skills. And for those like IT project managers for sure that have both, the market will be incredible now and in the future. All right, so I'll pause real quick here. Louisa, do we have any questions so far in the chat? I did not catch any thus far.
And in the chat, people are mostly answering the polls. And Jared said that survey did not refresh. I think because that last question you just asked us to answer in the chat.
I did, yes. I didn't make that a live survey. I just had folks guess in the chat. Yes.
Okay.
So on those, that the answer was 91% for advanced IT skills and 70% for basic IT skills.
That's great. This poll, because I feel very relieved that only 5% can be fully automated. I guess 50%. I was totally off, but I feel so much better that it's only 5%.
So robots are definitely not coming to wipe out jobs for those of us in the IT sector and those that have solid emotional intelligence and can support customers. There's pretty rapid job growth in the future. So don't worry at all if you have either of those things about RPA coming to take your job. It will come to help you take away the things you want to give away, for sure.
True. I agree with Ivan. It's good news. Good news for us. They're humans.
All right, so let's talk about what RPA looks like in practice. So there are a couple of types of robots. There are unattended robots. Think of these as things that you can set it and forget it. You do not have to be there. These are processes that might run overnight, office activities. We'll set up a process to run on its own and you do not have to be there. So things that can be fully automated without any human intervention. So it might be claims processing or the hospice oriented activity that I talked about before. We did not have to sit there and do anything with that. Once we automated it, it ran on its own 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So fully unattended automation. So completely run on its own, was scheduled. And these could also be run based on some type of trigger action where they run in response to a certain event. So the other type is attended. An attended robot is something that might work side by side. So think of a chat bot as more of an attended automation where there's some human interaction. So for example, the attended automation could be something that is sitting there beside a customer service agent that is helping support their process. So they may pull up a customer on screen and click something that would go out and retrieve some information that could help them gather information faster for that customer, or support their needs more quickly, or that type of thing. Retrieve information necessary, or maybe something that gathers their phone number from the IVR system and pulls up records. That's a type of automation that that needs perhaps some human interaction later in the process. So the types of processes, if you're thinking through what might be best to automate, there are 3 R's. So first, routine. You want something that is just followed over and over repeatedly. You do not want something that changes day to day a whole lot. It should be rare that it changes. So first, it needs to be routine. Second, repeatable. So think about 80% of the time, it should be something that follows a given set of instructions. Now, it doesn't mean it should only have one path. It could be, the instructions are that it could follow path A, B, or C. It doesn't have to be a very simple set of instructions. It could be complicated, a more complicated set of instructions, but at least 80% of the time, it should follow that set of instructions. So repeatable for sure. And then 3, rules-based. So you can write a standard set of instructions in great detail with every keystroke and every mouse click, and that 12-year-old should be successful in following them. So should be able to completely go through that set of instructions, that set of rules that first time, and be able to follow it start to finish, having never done it before without a whole lot of explanation. That's rules-based. And then kind of a bonus, high volume is better. If that happens once a year, well, it may not be worth putting the effort in there to automate it unless it's just an incredible cost to the company. Most of the time, that wouldn't make any sense. Most of the time, you would want something that's that happens with decent regularity in order to be worthwhile to automate. With that said, these are the types of things that typically companies want to automate. So first, you can imagine a lot of office processes. So payroll, and in whole or in part, demographic type information. So company onboarding, pulling that information in. Time and expenses are a popular one. Pulling in benefits information, some of the recruiting processes, those are fairly popular to automate pieces or whole parts of those processes. So IT services, identity management, so credential creation, termination of accounts, monitoring. So not just monitoring software, but actually responding to events. So, hey, we see that such and such went down. The fix for that is to do these particular things and to take it a further level to enact those responses and to have things up and running before people ever knew it was out. Software deployment, retrieval of backups, actually setting up machines. And I know you guys see some of that in the cloud already, but those types of activities for sure. Finance and accounting, very popular. Invoicing, accounts payable, vendor management, collections, reporting is a super popular area for sure. So any report that you pull regularly or create regularly, definitely an area that you want to consider automating. And then supply chain. So inventory, supply and demand, contract management, work orders, returns, all of those are areas that definitely want to consider automating, at least creation or part of those processes, and then leave the more advanced pieces. So perhaps auditing portions of that or looking for anomalies, dealing with those types of things, the issues to the human team where they can focus on those areas rather than just the day-to-day basic elements of the process, that the human team can then focus on the decision-making and the pieces that are the unusual parts of the process. All right, if you have not already voted, it looks like we've got one person already. Make sure that you go out to Menti, this will be the last one, and vote on whether you really love to enter time and expenses yourself by hand. All right, we've had 14. It's unanimous so far. We usually have one person who loves it, one or two. No takers so far. So I don't know about you guys, but I feel like my life is a little bit shorter every single time I have to enter my time. I personally have like 30 ton buckets and have to justify my time to the 15 minutes and put notes in there. It's just not time well spent for my life. I just don't enjoy it. So if I was to go around asking each one of you about whether or not you would like me to automate your timesheet, it doesn't seem like we'd have a whole lot of people declining that offer. And that's how I would like you to think about robotic process automation. Those are the types of processes that RPA automates. And in fact, I have automated my timesheet. I actually use my calendar in Outlook that typically had meetings in it anyway. And the categorization mechanism in Outlook, I use that. I have my robot read that information behind the scenes from the cloud with Office 365 and use that to type in time categories and the time buckets into our timekeeping system on a regular basis at night. And it made my life a whole lot better. That is not fruitful time spent for me, not enjoyable whatsoever. So I know when we talk about RPA projects with our clients, it can scare a lot of people in the various groups. And for any of you that are managing projects, for sure, organizational change management for the folks that are in the departments impacted is very important. A lot of people do get scared about their jobs being taken over. And that's not, at least our company does not come in with the idea that we're going to go slash a department. We're there to make people's lives better and for them to focus on the meaningful work in their teams, not to go to cut departments away. So we're taking particular processes that are not that enjoyable for folks to focus on each day and automating those so that they can spend their time focusing on the rest. Timesheets is one of those. I don't think anybody would begrudge those being taken away, and you go, sacrificing your timesheet to automation for sure. So think of RPA in that way, and make sure that if you're doing a project that you sit in the shoes of the person whose work may be automated and think of it from their perspective for sure. That OCM is a very important part of things, and people may not understand what RPA is and may be scared about their job going away, but very, very important. So this is a demonstration. This is a data retrieval. In this case, I automated what I was spending significant time on each day. This is, I have 4 children, and our county has a really terrible system that requires you clicking into every single class to see grades. 4 children, 4 times logging in, had to go click on every single class to see what assignments were upcoming, that type of thing. So what you see on the right here are all the activities that the robot is performing. Down at the bottom is email, where you can see the email coming through. At the top is it retrieving the grade information. So this is the same type of process that you could create for yourself, or just retrieving any information related to a project, like you would every week, natural, data retrieval, depending on the costs for your project, for example. So this is actually the robot performing all of these keystrokes and mouse clicks and sending this email at the bottom, where you can see the resulting email that actually has a screenshot and the grade there at the bottom, and a table is all. This is just an automation. It's performing every bit of this on its own, creating an HTML email, grabbing a screenshot, pulling all of that data, all without me having to go do it. This saved 15 minutes a day for me having to do it, or just not doing it. And my kids were not the biggest fans, I'll have to say that. But it saved me a whole bunch of time, and very similar system could be put together. And I did put together something similar to to pull reports from our reporting system, and would set this up the same way for any reports that I have to pull regularly, because logging in and pulling reports is not time super well spent. I could be spending that time analyzing reports and data from a system rather than pulling them each week. So these tools are widely available, both the business version that's simple to use, and then the more technical version where you're just automating the mouse clicks that you would have been performing already. So that's a simple automation. It's using a web browser and Outlook. Those are the two tools employed here, and this is just the window showing the automation tool and what is happening, but it's just using the tools that were there on screen. So let's talk more about how this can be applied to your project management life. So first, if you want to consider how this can be useful in project management, think about some of the simple repetitive processes in your projects. Are you pulling data every week related to your project? Are you pulling reports regularly? Think about a pilot project that you might want to automate and start learning. Join the UiPath community. There are a lot of people out there. There's lots of help, people in the forums every day, Slack channels, and then go out and build a robot. The training is free. The tools are free. Why not? Few areas to consider. You want to do something really small and easy, like request a report or send out an email, something very simple that involves an application or two. You don't want something where you want by structured input. You don't want an email that comes into you that changes every week that somebody types by hand. You want something, an email comes into you and you have to react to it. You want it to be a formula, very exact. You don't want to do PDFs the first few times. Those are more complicated. You don't want to have to involve a bunch of screens. And you definitely don't want to deal with Citrix or a virtual machine the first few times. That's a little bit more complicated. So the tools can definitely handle it, but it's a little bit more complicated. So it's best to reserve that little bit of complexity for after you have done things a few times and are used to building robots where you can handle that additional complexity. So if you're interested in looking into the training, the place to go is academy.uipath.com. There is a solid training out there called RPA Awareness. Just if you want to know more about robots and aren't interested in building, there are courses out there for implementation managers and project managers if you have no interest in building robots. There are tools out there. There's a tool called Studio X. That is if you want to only be if you want to build them only on the more business-oriented side with the more simplistic tool, and then a tool called Studio if you want to be a little bit more technical. You can start down the path and decide for yourself. So the training is all free. You can see where it takes you. The community information is right here. The forum information and Slack information. I am often out there on Slack where if you get stuck, there are plenty of people just out in the community to help you. That's how several of us that are MVPs just were out there and like to help people, do things that are more meaningful. So like to help people with their automation questions. And here are a few more ideas of things that could be possible robots for you. So entering your expenses, pulling in business cards and creating them into contacts, creating templates, saving statements from your bank, verifying homework, searching bank and phone records, things like that are all things that you could automate for yourself. It doesn't have to be something work related. I've definitely built a number of robots. I do save my bank records without having to do it manually, save my bank statements on my personal computer where I don't have to manually log in and do it one by one myself. So something to consider. And I do have some automations related to doing some of my expenses. All right. So here's some additional ideas. There are definitely a few more automations out there. UiPath is not the only tool by far. Microsoft does have a product as well. You guys saw the others. Automation Anywhere makes a tool that they make available for free as well. Microsoft Flow does have a certain amount of their tooling that's out for free. Flow makes the ability to create things like Teams automated, SharePoint sites automated. So I know a lot of you guys use Microsoft products. I'm a huge fan of Teams and O365 as well. So definitely something that you might want to consider and look into for yourself as part of, the beginning of project is the abilities of Flow to create some of this initial project setup. So a few more ideas for you. This is an example of a flow. So not quite as simplistic to use as UiPath, but and focus definitely on the Microsoft products alone. But since a lot of us use them, it might be worth considering if creation of Teams and SharePoint sites or initial project plans. If part of that is your initial project setup, it might be a consideration for you and not too difficult to set up. All right. I'm here at the end. Any questions?
Hi, Tracy. We have a couple of questions here. Linda asked, did you share the time entry tool with the coworkers?
Nobody else has asked for it. They know that I've created it. We have a presentation where I've done it recently and talked about it, but nobody else has asked for it. So I'd be happy to if they were interested in it.
And Ramona is asking, are you sharing something other than the audience poll?
I am. I'm sharing the presentation.
Great. Do you guys have some more questions?
Do others see the presentation where it says questions on screen? I'm seeing it in Remo. Okay.
Yeah, I see it. I can say, Tracy, that I came here today and I came kind of pessimistic because I was like, us humans are losing our jobs for the automation system. And I come out of it really optimistic because it was great to learn more about it. And now I even see it as a way to avoid like employee burnout. So you can help them.
When you think about automating, you'll start a month later, even you start looking at what you do in a whole different light and you start seeing the things that you could automate. So it's not just, I've heard people talk about like buying, marketing, that type of thing. There are things that you could add in artificial intelligence to. Chatbots are one. I'm working on a little chat bot where instead of being very prescriptive, so I ask my timesheet, hey, am I missing any time categories, for example, because you have to classify it. The AI part of that is natural language processing. I don't have to ask it in a very exact way now because I have something that can process the human language where it can take it a number of different ways. So that's where artificial intelligence is just starting to touch RPA, where you don't have to be quite as prescriptive, but it's very early. Right now, the instructions have to be fairly precise, but that and so natural language processing and asking like Alexa, that type of thing, which I'm sure she's responding over here now. That being added to RPA, that's the future. And having to be less prescriptive. Now we can scan in documents and you don't have to have, exact fields in exact places. There could be a little bit of a difference. So it's starting to get more advanced, or it doesn't have to be quite as precise. So that's all advancing. It will get better and better, I'm sure.
Ivan's saying here that it's a brand new topic for him. And I have to say it's a brand new topic for me as well.
Good. They are always, I get contacted probably twice a day with companies looking for RPA developers and RPA project managers. it is something you really might want to consider looking into the training on and being aware of. And it might be worthwhile putting in your background to know what it is. It's a really hot area, and the jobs are out there for sure. So for those of you that might be looking, or even not, putting that out there at your company to make others aware that you know what it is, and it's definitely a cutting edge type thing that your company's got to be considering it soon, or know about it.
Sure. And it's great that you gave us some tips on how to start with it, because I was listening to you and I was like, how do I get my people out? Because I don't really know about this subject. So it was great that it talked about the UI path or the other tools.
They take you step by step through it. There's labs. The training is very, very good, and it's at your own pace. So they take you step by step through the whole way. They give you examples. They give you the answers. If you get stuck, you can get past it. So you can definitely get plugged in and go as far as you want to go with it, whether you are actually doing automations yourself or just learning about it so you can manage automations. But it's worth looking into, just to not have to do certain reports every week. You could save yourself an hour of time and get off an hour early.
Professional.
Yes.
That's the good part. You don't have to be in IT. You can learn.
Right. So the tool actually looks a lot like Visio, where you're dragging and dropping. It's not writing lines like, a black screen, and it's not just a bare screen with nothing on it. It's a lot of dragging and dropping and adding information. So it's not nearly as scary as you think. If you haven't looked at what's out there, you should definitely consider it. It's intended to be low code and to be a lot easier to set up than you might know otherwise.
That's great. It sounds scary at first, but hearing you talk, I feel like I could take the training and understand it. If the training is free, even if you work at a larger company.
Training is free for everyone. The tool is free for everyone. The licensing says 100%. It is okay at all times to download it. And for development and training purposes, it is always free, 100% functional to license at any time. So everyone can download it. Everyone. So it is always okay for that. The only time that they ask that a company pays for it is if it's used in a production environment of a company that has 5 million or more in revenue per year. Charities, unless it's a charity. I mean, I assume a charity would not have that, but charities are always free, but that licensing says in a production scenario for that specific case. So everyone can always train on it. Companies might have additional restrictions. They may not let you install it or whatever, but as far as the licensing, they want everyone to have it and for it to be commonplace and for you to be able to automate what you want to. So you saw me, I automated my kids' grades. It doesn't have to be work-oriented at all. You could, automate, you're creating something for church every week or something for your favorite charity. Every charity, I'm sure, would welcome whatever help they can get. That they always need help doing things every week, whatever it may be. So start looking around and thinking through what might be, something that you have to do all the time that would make your life a little easier if you didn't have to do it.
Sure. That's what Paul is saying here on the chat, saying that he's going to think of little things he can do to improve his life as well.
Yep. And I'm always happy to help with ideas. Feel free to reach out to me. Always happy to assist or reach out to me on LinkedIn or I'm on the forums on Slack, etc. So if you have ideas or need help.
Okay. So we're going to have to wrap it up because we're going to have a closing session. We should all go back to the main room. That's the blue room. Okay. But at the end, Tracy.
And they were good until the end.
So I'm gonna turn off the presentation and we are gonna all be on the floor, but we should go to the main room for the closing session. Tracy, thank you so much. That was great and so informative. We all appreciate it.